We, the Minnesota Immigrant Rights Action Committee, present our 2021 campaign to end the war on immigrants. We will do this through political action, community education, protests, and direct solidarity with those affected at the border. As Joe Biden begins his presidency, we will hold him accountable to the immigrant rights reforms he promised to make. We will not stop there. We demand the following: legalization for all, no border wall, close the camps and reunite children and families, reverse attacks on asylum, end border militarization, end ICE detention abuses like forced sterilization. President Biden ran on the promise of immigration reform and the reversal of Trump's anti-immigrant policies. He is on record saying he will do the following within the first 100 days of his tenure: create an easier path to asylum, implement a 100-day freeze on deportations from the interior, extend protections for young immigrants with DACA status, grant a pathway to legal status to 11 million immigrants, rescind travel and immigration bans on 13 countries, reunite migrant families. We have not forgotten the 3 million people who were deported under the Obama-Biden administration. That's 3 million families torn apart. After 4 years of Trump's relentless attacks on immigrants, we now, more than ever, need to hold Biden accountable to change our country's course on immigration. Biden asked for patience, but each day that passes is another day in which immigrants' rights are pushed to the margins and their lives and livelihoods are jeopardized. Because justice delayed is justice denied, and too often, later becomes never, we will work to make sure we see changes in immigration policies within the first 100 days. MIRAC will continue to push for legalization for all and an end to the whole system that profits from the mass incarceration and the mass deportation of immigrants, and also the super exploitation of the labor of immigrants who live under constant fear of deportation. Our demands are vast, but ultimately necessary to stop the inhumane treatment of immigrants in the United States. We demand this happens now. Trump's administration budgeted $21.6 billion towards expanding the border wall. We demand that all construction and all funding for this wall stop immediately. The segment of the border wall being built on the land of the indigenous Autumn people, separating their territory, which is both in Arizona and Mexico, must be removed immediately. The United States has continued to fracture its moral ground by separating families at its border. We demand that the Biden administration stop this immediately and begin a process of reuniting families. The wall isn't the only problem at the border. The idea of prevention through deterrence has created a whole militarized system with Customs and Border Patrol, CPB, checkpoints, and patrols all throughout border areas, and massive surveillance towers and other smart technologies. These all have the same purpose: pushing migrants further into the most deadly areas of the desert. Migrants must then risk death as they flee wars, violence, and economic catastrophes in their home countries. The result is thousands of people dying in the desert every year. This system of border militarization also harms people on the U.S. side of the United States-Mexico boundary, those who just happen to live in communities near the border. They live under conditions of military occupation by CPB. There's 24/7 surveillance from the ground and the air, and they have to go through military-style checkpoints every day to do things like grocery shopping, going to school, or visiting the doctor. This cannot go on forever. It is cruel and deadly for migrants and unjust for border communities. It must end now. The U.S. has created a dangerous system of oppression, eugenics, and brutalization. Many of these abuses happen under ICE in their private for-profit prisons. These prisons must be closed now. ICE has gone unchecked for far too long. We demand that ICE be abolished and their detention facilities shut down. The Trump administration drafted policy after policy to create barriers for asylum seekers. Restrictions were inflicted based on 3 main criteria: where they attempted entry from, whether they have applied for asylum in other countries before coming to the United States, and whether they have had minor involvement in the criminal justice system. We demand a clear and accessible path to asylum for those seeking safety in the U.S. Join the fight with us. Support our campaign to end the war on immigrants by taking the following actions. Sign our petition to tell President Joe Biden to meet our demands. Attend our educational events. Join us in the streets as we protest in solidarity with immigrants.